Hello people of the Republic of the Philippines. I am Brother JoArs Alferez, OCDS of the Order of the Discalced Carmelite Secular. So I am your professor of this subject, Values Education and Peace and Development. So first I'd like to share with you the legal foundation of values education in our country, in the Philippines. So there is a department order number 41 series of 2004 about this foundation of values education. I think you are familiar with this in the program, especially particularly in the Department of Education. Republika ng Pilipinas, ito po yung ating values program. Makadiyos, makatao, makakalikasan, makabayan, makabansa. The 5 M's, which is once again from the Department Order number 41 series of 2003. So this values education also has a social function. Unite the families, the tribes, societies, and the nations. That's why with this department order, there is an offering now of this so-called values education in all institutions because it unites the families, our tribes, societies, as well as the whole nation. I think you're also familiar with this K-12 program. It was implemented a few years ago. I think the first graduate last year. Then it continues because this is part of our integration or para maka-level up tayo with the other countries kasi tayo lang naiwan, and now we have the implementation of this K-12 program. And you know very well about this character education. That was before, and I think lahat tayo nadaanan natin ito. And now, pinapalitan na edukasyong pagpakatao, na ito yung tinatawag nating values education. Honing an individual's capacity to make moral, ethical decisions, and actions. So from character education to edukasyong pagpapakatao. So yun yung ating values education now. So not only in the elementary, not only in the secondary, as well as at the tertiary, that includes us, the graduate students. So that we'll be reminded once again about this values education. Values education includes the 5 macro skills. Take note of these 5 macro skills: understanding, reflecting, consulting, decision making, as well as the last one, performing. So these are the macro skills in which I think all of us, the graduate students, mayroon na sana tayong ganito. Okay? Not only the elementary, not only the high school, the college, as well as the graduate students. Sana meron na tayong ganyan with these macro skills, the skills of understanding, reflecting, consulting, decision-making, then performing. Our Philippine Constitution of 1987, remember 1987, that was the time of Corazon Aquino. There's a vision, a just and humane society which calls for a shared culture and commonly held values such as truth, justice, freedom, love, equality, and peace. So that includes peace. That's why our subject is values education and peace and development. Okay? Because of this from the Constitution of 1987. Once again, a just and humane society which calls for a shared culture and commonly held values such as truth, justice, freedom, love, equality, and peace. So what about the goal of this values education? So the first goal is to provide and promote values education in all levels of educational system for the development of the human person committed to the building of a just and humane society, an independent and democratic nation. So once again, I told you all levels of education, elementary, tertiary, secondary, as well as including us, the professionals. That's why this is just a reminder to all of us with this values education. Okay? For the development of the human person committed to building of a just, humane society and an independent democratic nation. What about the objective of this program? First, proper implementation program will develop Filipinos. This is the first objective, are self-actualized, integrally developed human beings imbued with a sense of human dignity. Okay, self-actualized, integral, developed human beings imbued with a sense of human dignity. And you know what is human dignity? And that's the first objective of this program. Second, are social beings with a sense of responsibility for their community and the environment. Sense of responsibility for their community and the environment. All of us professionals mayroon tayong sense of responsibility. And you know very well what is responsibility. Comes from the two word, ability as well as response. So, the ability to respond, of course, to the needs of the community as well as to the environment. And we know nowadays what is happening to our environment. What will be our response as Filipino? Kayo, mga pulis, the teachers here, and some other professionals. I think you have tree planting. We have tree planting. But the problem with this tree planting, hanggang dyan lang sa tree planting, dapat tree growing. I was an NSTP instructor when I was in Notre Dame University years ago. Then punta kami sa Dimapatoy. What happened? Sige lang tree planting every year. After ay babalik kami, walang nabubuhay. Kasi sige lang tree planting, walang tree growing. That's also the problem. Then with all the documentation, I think that's also true with you, police officers. Before there was a tree planting, every police officers dapat may itanim. Pero what happened? May nabubuhay ba? Wala. But all the documentation, kompleto. So that's the point there. Kaya nga, a social being, dapat the sense of responsibility to our community as well as the environment. Because nowadays, our environment is suffering. You know that one very well. So that's the second objective. Third, are productive persons who contribute to the economic security and development of the family and the nations. So, dapat turuan natin dito, mga anak natin, to be productive. Okay? To contribute economic security and the development of the family and the nations. And surely, ginagawa na rin natin ito because we are all professionals. Okay? The question now, are we productive? As police officers, am I productive? As teachers, am I productive? O baka sunod-sunuran lang ako? That's the point there. Okay? As public servants, am I productive? O hanggang gumawa lang ako sa na dapat kong gawin? So that's the point. That's the issue there. So it's up to us. Okay? Fourth objective, as citizens have a deep sense of nationalism and committed to the progress of the nations as well as the entire world. Okay? World community through global solidarity. Once again, a sense of nationalism. Paano ito? I think alam natin the sense of nationalism when we were still young. Did you still remember your panunumpa ng watawat? The panatang mga kabayan? With your age, nakalimutan na? During our time, that's panatang makabayan. Iniibig ko ang Pilipinas. Ito ang tahanan ng aking lahi. Ako'y kanyang kinukupkup at tinutulungan upang maging karapat-dapat at kapaki-pakinabang. And we have also a version in English before. I love the Philippines. It is the land of my birth. It is the home of my people. It protects me and helps me to be strong, happy, and useful. In return, I will serve the country of my parents. I will obey the rules of my school. I will perform the duty of a patriotic, law-abiding citizen. I will serve my country unselfishly and faithfully. I will be a true Filipino in word and thought and in deed. So that's part of being nationalist at saka yung patriotism na tinatawag natin. So in values education, that's why I told you we are reminded of this. Okay? Fifth, manifest in actual life an abiding faith in God as a reflection of His spiritual being. Okay? Manifest an actual life, in actual life, an abiding faith in God as a reflection of His spiritual being. But the question, what about those who don't believe in God? That's a point there. I think that's a point to ponder. Although they don't believe in God, but if they are doing the will of God, and I think, and I believe, they are still abiding the faith, if they don't call it God, maybe to the Supreme, or whatever is the name higher than them. I think even pagans, even the atheists, they still believe there is higher than them. Okay? But that's our objective in this program, the Values Education. Actual life and abiding faith in God as a reflection of His spiritual being. Then there are also principles and guidelines of values education. First principle, as well as a guideline, it must be oriented towards a total person of a learner, the mind, the heart, and the entire being of a learner. Now, we are all professional, but we are still learner. Because when you talk about learning, it is continuous. It will not stop, supposed to be, until we have life. So take note on that. So I hope once again, this is a reminder to all of us. The question, total na ba yung pagkatao ko? Okay? My mind, my heart, my whole being, the entire being. That's the principles and guidelines. Second, it must take into consideration the unique role of the family in one's personal development and integration into society and action. So each one of us, professionals, police officers, teachers, public servants, I think we have also our duty, our responsibility, okay, towards our family, for the personal development. So that ito yung mga tinuturuan natin, mga anak natin, if they'll go to the world, to the society, and to the nation as a whole, they will be a good and a total social being, a total person. Okay? Third, in the school context, more important than lesson plan and any list of values are the teachers themselves who have the proper sense of values, awareness of their inner worth, and the utmost respect for the person of the other. So this is for all of us, particularly for us teachers. May mga teachers din tayo dito. Kasali na ako doon. Okay? Ulitin ko, this is in the school context. Important than lesson plan. I know, mga teachers dito, every day, you're making lesson plan. Okay, but remember with these guidelines, more important than lesson plan and in a list of values, tayo yung mga teachers have proper sense of values supposed to be. So, do you have proper sense of values? Hopefully, mayroon, mga teachers. Of course, including you, police officers. Because in your own little way, you are also teachers. Whether you believe it or not. Because you're a father, you're a brother, you're a sister, to your siblings, or to the community. Kaya nga kayo, tinitingala din kayo. Okay, bilang mga leader. Okay? So, the awareness of and their inner worth and the respect for persons of the other. Then we have the values conceptual framework. What about this conceptual framework? What it is? It is descriptive. It is an attempt at orderly description of a desirable value system on the basis of an understanding of the human person. Remember the first skills, the macro skills, understanding. Remember the first slide? Understanding. Particularly human person, sa tao. Then, it is also conceptual. It lists ideals which have to be internalized in the educational process. Ideals which have to be internalized in the educational process. Nowadays, it is long before in our education, and I think may problema tayo in our educational system. Nadagdagan because of this K to 12, pero until today may problema pa rin. And why? Because the graduates of the K to 12, they are not yet ready. If they are ready, we don't have industries. Yun yung problema. Then, lalo na ngayon, may pandemic, the question, malaking problema din. Virtual na nga tayo. Sa akin, ito yung pinaka-safe na ginagawa ko. Nagle-lecture ako, nagsishare ako through a recorded lecture. Kasi nasubukan ko yung mag-Zoom, mag-Google Meet, labo-labo, because we know very well in the Philippines, we have the problem of internet connection. Okay? That's more on internalizing the educational process. Pero, we have to see to it na we are doon sa maganda, hindi yung mga negative. Because this is values education. Another one, it is intended to be applicable in varying degrees of all three levels of educational system. So this values education intended to be applicable, and of course, that's why from character education to values education. Three levels, elementary, secondary, tertiary, including as the postgraduate. Ito, sabi ko, this is just a reminder to all of us. We know this one, but we are reminded once again. That's why we have values education subject. Then, it is a broad and flexible enough for adoption of the specific context. Okay? Broad, flexible in adopting the specific concept. What it is not, when you talk about values conceptual framework, ano yung hindi dapat? So it is not prescriptive. Prescriptive. Values cannot be imposed, and which is true. We cannot impose values. Remember on that. But we offer. Pinakita natin. That's why you have to be a leader. We have to be a witness of these values. But we cannot impose. So it is not with this conceptual framework. Then, it is not exhaustive. It does not purport to be a complete list of human values. And that's also true. Okay? It makes no statement on regional, local, institutional needs and priorities. So, what it is not, once again, it makes no statement on a regional, local, and institutional needs and priorities. Okay? Because it depends to the region, it depends to the countries, it depends to a particular place. Then, what it uses with this, ano namang gamit? So, it is desirable for all regions. So, it can be for all regions yung values education, localities, institution, construct their own values map and with clearly defined priorities suited to their particular context and needs. That's why, here in Cotabato City or here in Parang, here in Maguindanao, kaya sabi natin, hindi pwedeng ma-impose. Kasi iba tayo. So, it depends to the context, to our context. So, pwede ba tayong tularan? Pwede rin. Then, itong nasa atin, hindi din natin pwedeng i-impose doon sa Maynila. Naalala ko tuloy si Binay, ganito kami sa Makati. Gusto ko ang buong bayan kagaya sa Makati. Sabi ko na naginip ng gising si Binay. So ngayon, malapit na may eleksyon. When you talk about this values framework, baka lalabas naman ito. Okay? But once again, it is desirable that regions, localities, and institutions construct their own values map with clearly defined priorities suited to their peculiar context and needs. So, kaya nga nagdepende yan sa sitwasyon. Okay? In that particular area, in that particular place. What about the philosophy of this program? First, the values education program is based on the philosophy of human person. When you are still in college, I think you have the subject, philosophy of the human person. Before it was philosophy of man, then to be gender sensitive, ginawa yang philosophy of the human person. That includes woman. Not only philosophy of man, kaya nga human person. So once again, this is the philosophy, values education, we have the program, the philosophy education. Before this philosophy education, it was offered in college, but now it's offered, I think, in grade 11 in the junior high, senior high. Okay, itong philosophy human person. I was teaching this when I was in the university, in college, the philosophy of the human person. So ito ngayong focus ngayon with this program, the values education, especially the human person, tao. And later siguro in the next presentation, I'll be sharing with you about the philosophy of this human person. And I think you are familiar with some of the philosophers. Maybe later I'll share this one. Anong pananaw nila sa human person, yung tao mismo? So marami yon. So I'll be sharing that one later in maybe in the next topic or in the next presentation. Then the human person is a subject of education. Okay, tao. He is a human person learning and being taught. So tao, natututo siya at saka siya din yung tinuturuan. That's why in the values education, we focus more on this tao, human person, the totality, especially the totality of the human person. Then the human person is also the object of this program. The human person is at the center of the curriculum of the entire program. It is the attainment of a just and humane society. Kaya pag walang tao, wala itong program na ito. That's why the focus now is tao, the center of the curriculum. Bakit? Para yung tao, maganda yung kanyang takbo sa kanyang buhay. Kung punong-puno yan na tinatawag nating values. Then, I think when you know very well the dimensions of the human person. The dimensions, it gives the totality of the entire being, the human person. Pag makulang yung isa, kulang yung pagkatao mo. And what are those dimensions? And I think alam natin ito. Look at this one, this diagram. The different dimensions of the human person, take note. Intellectual, we are given the intellect by God to think, to reflect. Okay? Moral, you know what is morality? It talks about the goodness and badness of one's action. Then, spiritual. What about spiritual? It talks about, of course, to the Supreme Being, to our Creator. Then, we are also a spiritual being because we shared that spirituality from our Creator. What about this spirituality? Comes from the Greek word ruah. Ruah, which means a breath. That's a remember, every time we breath, we are breathing the word of God. That's according to one of the theologians. That's why every time you breath, you are breathing the breath of God. That's being spiritual. Okay? Take note on that. Social. Take note, the social. That's why we are social being. We need someone. I think you're familiar with the poem. No man is an island, no man stands alone. Each one needs somebody to be with, to converse, to talk. So, yun. Because we are, by nature, we are social being. Mabuhay pa tayo pag mag-isa? What do you think? By nature, I don't think so. That's why, remember the story in our teachings, Islam, the Christianity, the story when God created man, the first was Adam. Then, nalulungkot si Adam, tinitingnan ni God, kawawa itong tao na nilikha ko, walang kausap. Of course, may mga hayop, pero hindi naman tao. That's why one night, tulog si Adam, kinuha yung isa sa mga tadyang at ginawang babae at pinangalanang in Islam, in Arabic, Hawa, si Eve. So that's why, beginning on that moment, man is a social being. He needs someone, somebody, complementary to be with, to talk. Okay? Kasi only as human being is given with the intellect and the will. So that's S. That's more on self. Then nasa gitna dyan, economic naman. So moral, spiritual, social. Okay. On the other side of the human person, as a member of the society, dito as self. Then dito naman, member of the society. So economic. Plato said that man is an economic being. Livelihood, mabuhay tayo, survival, that's more on our economic. Physical, of course. Alam natin yon. Kaya nga kayo, mga pulis, o kahit sino man, nag-exercise. Kasi mga dagko nagtiyan. Kaya hindi pwedeng malaking tiyan. Kapag may operation, madali kang matamaan. Kasi malaki, dako ka og tiyan. Kung natamaan ka man, huwag ka nang magalit. Dapat magpaliit ka ng tiyan. Kasi that's part of the values when we talk about physical. Then political. Man is also political being. And of course, being political, you have to what? Exercise your right. Especially nowadays, malapit ng election. You have to exercise the right of suffrage. So you have to vote. Okay? That's being political being. And of course, the next is intellectual. Sinabi natin kanina. We are an intellectual being. Of all the creatures of God, tayo yung pinaka-special. And why? Because we are given that intellect. We are the highest form of the animals. The highest form of the animals. We are animal, but the highest form because we have this one. And the other animals, they don't have this one, the intellect. Only human person. That's why in values education, the focus is human person. That includes, look at the diagram, the 7 dimensions. If one is missing, you're not complete as human person. Morality, wise. Tingnan ninyo. Pag may problema yan, may problema ka rin. 4 na asawa? Yes, because it is allowed. Pero pag pinilit, because of lust, go to hell. Kasi hindi ganun ang intention. Kuha? Kasi yung iba dahil lang sa biga, ginamit ang reliyon. Tapos tingnan mo ang ibang pamilya, nagkaletse-letse. So there is something wrong with morality. Take note on that. Mga Kristiyano, ganun din. Dapat isa-isa lang, nangabit. Resulta, letse-letseng buhay mo. At alam niyo yan, maraming nagkaletse-letse din mga pulis. Tamaan ka man, huwag ka na magalit. You have to check as a human person para buo dapat. So, yung 7 dimensions dapat balanse yan. Okay, huwag mo pabayaan isa kasi that gives you a total person, a total being, a human person. And it gives you the so-called dignity of that human person. Okay? I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but as human as I am, tinitingnan ko din yan, mabalanse din yan. Spiritual, ikaw lang din makakasagot dyan. Sabi ko, spirit, ruah. Every time you breathe, you're breathing the word of God. That's why we are also called. We have also the duty to remember our Creator. Prayer in the masjid, in your church, whatever is your religion, kailangan din yon. Problema lang kasi sa mga tao, magdasal lang pag may kailangan. Pag walang kailangan, ay one lang. That's the question there. Okay? So, those are the 7 dimensions of the human person. Okay. The person is an individual self-conscious being of incalculable value in himself. That's in Article 1, Section 2, as well as in the Article 7, Section 1, who cannot be a mere instrument of the society and of the state. So, nasa Constitution din yan. Then, from Article 2, Section 13, he is not just a body and soul, juxtaposed or mixed as a oil or water, but he is an embodied spirit. Hence, his spirit is his physical, intellectual, moral, spiritual being is recognized by the state. So take note of that. That's according to Article 2, Section 3. Okay, not just a mixture of body and soul, but it is embodied by the spirit. Therefore, we are total person, total being. That includes the 7 dimensions. Okay. Then, when it comes to physical being, of course, he has material needs. Exercise, pagkain, yun yung kailangan natin sa physical. Kaya ano pa? Maliban sa pagkain. Basta yung kailangan natin lahat in our physical dimension as being. Intellectual, sabi na natin yan, an intellect whose activity is to know with a view to transform himself, society, and the whole. Okay. Gamit. At huwag magpagamit. What about nowadays? Pagamit ba tayo sa politicians? Kasi malapit ang eleksyon. Alam natin, mga government employees tayo, dapat neutral daw tayo. Walang kinikilingan. Sabi ni yung radio broadcaster sa TV, sino? Si Enrique? Okay, Mike Enriquez. Okay? Walang kinikilingan, sabi niya. So, same is true with this. Okay? The intellectual to know with the view of transforming himself, society, and the world. Pag ulang ka dito, may problema. Kaya nga, alam nyo, ang ganda pag nagbabasa ka, updated ka palagi sa mga nangyayari, nakikinig ka sa balita, sa dyaryo, kita mo yung pagkatao mo, then marami kang ibahagi din. Pero pag wala, sige ka lang upo sa kampo, sige text, sige chat, may makukuha ba? Yes, meron. But what about the knowledge na dapat mo sanang matutunan? Okay, that's the question there. Moral being, we discussed this one already. He is endowed with a free will which searches for the good and whose motive force is love. So, free will, moral being. That's why I told you that this is morality. It talks about the goodness and badness of one's action. It talks about good and evil. I think you remember in your ethics, and all of us, we are called to do good and to avoid evil. But there are times man opted to do evil than good. Kaya makita natin ngayon during election. Okay. So take note as moral being. Nakalagay nga dyan dito sa mga araw dyan, integrity, the ethics, the conduct, and the trust. Spiritual, his personhood is oriented, of course, to the Almighty God, to our Creator. Sabi ko na kanina, spiritual comes from spirit to spirit, or from the Latin spiritus, from the Greek word ruah, which means a breath. That's why every time we breath, once again, we are breathing the breath of God. That's the beauty of being a spiritual being as a person. Okay? Every time we breath, we are breathing the breath of God. Now, the human person, however, does not live in isolation. That's why sabi ko, man is a social being, but in a community with other person. Physical, intellectual, moral, and spiritual like himself. Hence, he is imbitably, so it's also coming from Article 2, Section 13 in our Constitution. So we are also meant for others, not only for self, but also for others. Then he belongs to a family. We know very well that family is the basic unit of the society. That's in our sociology. So in the words of the Constitution, the foundation of the nation. So as the basic society, so family is the foundation of our nation. Tinawag namin yan sa aming religion din na this is the domestic church. The family is the domestic church that contributes a lot to the whole, to the nation, okay, to the community. So that's why if we have yung matatawag nating maganda yung imahe nating pamilya, it would radiate to the community, then to the whole nation. Pero pag bad ang pamilya mo, it would also radiate yung bad to the nation. So that's the point there. Okay? Then a social being, he participates in defining the goals and destinies of the community and in achieving the common good. So sabi ko, a social being, we need someone, the others, especially to the community. As political, as pursuing the goal of the social progress, the total human liberation and development. From the Article 2, Section 17, as political being. That's why it's a call to all of us to participate, especially now na malapit na ang ating election. Whether we are, all of us are government employees, some are private employees, but we have to exercise our right, the right of suffrage as political being. Kasi pag kulang, hindi ka nag-participate, kulang din yung pagkatao mo. Saan yung dimension mo as a political being? May problema. Di ba? Then, sisi na lang, hindi ko man siya binoto, binoto ko may ganito. Dami na tayong kuskus balungos. Then, the core values, unrelated values, one of the foregoing philosophy of the human person, the supreme and the overarching value of that characterizes the educational process is human dignity. The human person is of infinite value. So, balik tayo sa human dignity na naman. Okay, the human person of an infinite value. That's coming from Article 2, Section 2, and Article 7, Section 1. So, these are the core values. Take note. We have the health, coming from what? Physical. Then we have also spirituality, the spiritual, of course. The truth, intellectual. The love, saan kaya yung love? What do you think? Sa pag-isipan, nationalism, global solidarity, economic efficiency, at saka social responsibility. So these are the core values coming from our dimensions. Remember the 7 dimensions? Spiritual, intellectual, moral. So, the values na makikita natin, yun ding 7 dyan. The core values coming from the 7 dimensions of human person. Next. Now, take note on this. Human person as well, di ba? I told you in that previous slides as well as the diagram. Persons as self, human persons, and persons to the community and to others. So, dimension, example, physical, take note. What are the values under physical? Health, of course. Under health, fitness, I think we mentioned that one. Cleanliness. Harmony with the material, the universe, then the beauty, as well as the art. That's under physical yung values na yon. Then going back to cleanliness, sinasabi, may kasabihan, cleanliness is next to godliness. Dapat malinis. Okay? Pero marami man din tayong mga dugyot, no? That's the point there. So, saan yung values natin? The value of beauty, the value of art, and harmony with the material. That's under physical dimensions of the human as self. Intellectual, look at the values. The truth, we want to know more because by nature wants to know the truth. He wants to seek knowledge. Okay? Creative and critical thinking. So we have to use the creative thinking, critical thinking. Kasi yung iba, nagpapadalos-dalos, hindi na nag-iisip. Remember? My father is a policeman. Bang, bang, bang! Critical thinking nawala. Creative thinking nawala. Intellectual, the truth, the knowledge nawala. Ngayon, Nebelanggo, parang basang sisiw. Take note. Okay? Moral. The value is love. And under love is integrity and honesty. Integrity as well as honesty. When you are still in the elementary and high school, sa mga classroom, di ba? Ang laki-laki, honesty is the best policy. But it's sad to note, and why? Majority of our leaders are graduates of the religious institution, from the Catholic school, from the madrasa. But when they talk about honesty, hindi man nila lahat, pero maraming kawatan. Tama? Maraming kawatan. Okay, maraming kawatan. Pero tinuruan sila ng values. Look at this value. Nagka-problema. Okay. Self-worth and self-esteem. Dapat that's under morality. Pero yung iba, may problema din, especially the self-esteem, the self-worth. Okay, then personal discipline. That's under morality. That's under the value of love. Personal discipline. Kayo lang nakakaalam dyan. Disiplina mong sarili mo. Pag may bisyo ka, bato-bato sa langit, ang matamaan, magalit at mabukol ka. And you are reminded with the personal discipline. Okay, sir, wala kang pakialam. And I think, dapat magpakialam because it's also my responsibility. That's my social responsibility. Okay? Sige lang ganyan, no? Para mga tambutso, mga baba ba. Huwag kayong magalit, ha? Totoo yan, nakikita ko yan. Yung face-to-face pa tayo, sa aming eskwelahan, dito sa training center, sa mga pulis, o kahit saan ka, dami. Usok. Walang disiplina. Kaya nga, pagdating sa pamilya, na nagarilyo din mga anak, and you don't have the authority to tell your children, or your son, or your daughter, for smoking. Ano ay? Nag-smoke ka. Huwag niyo akong gayahin, may mga ganon. Huwag niyo akong gayahin. Wala pa kayong mga trabaho. Dapat hindi ka nag-didisiplina mo sarili mo. Ang mga sigarilyo ngayon, di ba, mayroon ng mga nakalagay doon. May mga cancer, lahat, ang mga baga, pero wala, was effect sa mga nanigarilyo. Kasi, total, pareho lang tayo mamatay. Pero sabi ko, sana kayong unang mamatay. Pero ang problema, kaming hindi nanigarilyo, kami din yung unang mamatay. Ano ay? The second hand smoker, kami yon na hindi nanigarilyo, nanduot, linalanghap namin yung lahat. Okay, kaya nga kami unang mamatay. Pero sana kayo, pero may mali. Okay? Pero pag wala sanang sigarilyo, pero ang iba sinisisi man, dapat tanggalin yung kasi tax ang papasok yung personal discipline. Huwag sisihin ang factory. Sisihin mong sarili mo. Then palagi yung sabi ng iba, haram, haram, haram. Kung may mas sobra pa sa haram, ikaw yun. Because you don't have personal discipline. Especially the vices. Okay, huwag kayong magalit, ha. Okay? I think I'm the authority to tell you because hindi ako na ganyan. Makita man ako nanigarilyo, barilin ninyo ako. And you are not liable. Kasi mamatay na lang. Una man ako mamatay, hindi makatikim yung sigarilyo sa akin first hand. Almost the second hand, galing yung sa ninigarilyo, kahit na ako una mamatay. Okay? Hello, people. Huwag lang magalit. Matamaan ka, mabukol ka. Okay, mabukol ka lang para matauhan ka. That's the point there. That's under moral dimensions when we talk about love. Then, person the community, we have also social. So, papasok yung the value of social responsibility, and I think I already mentioned this to you, yung the social responsibility. Under social responsibility, mutual love, respect, fidelity. at saka under that, responsible parenthood. As nanay, as tatay, am I responsible? Am I doing my duty as parent? Okay? Then concern for the common good and the others. Then freedom, equality, social justice. Then the respect for human rights. Ang inyong idol, respect for human rights. Pag manalo siyang vice president, siya nang magiging human right. Okay? Kasi sabi na pag manalo din siya na din yung COA. Okay? Siya na yung lahat. Kaya siya ang magaling. Nasaan ang value? Then, with the spokesperson, sinasabi, ganyan talaga yung ating idol, ganyan talaga yan siya pag magsalita. Hindi ganyan. Mali pa rin when you talk about values. That's the reality. Peace. Active non-violence. Kaya nga, ang ating subject, values education and peace and development. Okay? Non-active violence, remember Gandhi? Then, popular participation, that's under the values of social. Next is political. Under political, I told you already, the values is nationalism, common identity. Lahat tayo'y mayroong pagkakaiba. Okay? Pinoy ako, Pinoy tayo, ipakita sa mundo na tayo ay Filipino. Huwag matakot, huwag mahiya. At dapat taas tuo tayong ipakita, tayo ay Filipino. That's our identity, common identity. Okay? The STEAM for national heroes, commitment, civic consciousness, the bayanihan, solidarity with and loyalty to our country. That's under political dimensions with the value of nationalism. Then global. Okay, the global solidarity, that's under the political dimension. International understanding and cooperation. Nowadays, because of this globalization, okay, napansin ninyo, noon, kala natin ang lawak-lawak, ang layo-layo ng ibang bansa. But now, because of this globalization, the world nowadays is becoming smaller, smaller, and smaller. Okay? Hindi kagaya noon. Ngayon, because of the modern technology, nandyan na. Ibang country, makikita na. Nag-abroad, makikita na. With the use of modern technology. That's global solidarity, the value under political dimension. So according to William Ralph Ince, the aim of education is the knowledge not of the fact but of values. So values is very, very important to all of us. Then don't just teach kids how to count. Teach them what counts most. Okay? That's a challenge to all of us. Parents, all of us. So with that, thank you very much, my dear people of the Republic of the Philippines. I hope you learned something. God bless us all. Stay safe. Mabuhay tayong lahat. Dalaygon ang Diyos. This is your friend, your professor, Brother JoArs Alferez.